Okay. All right. So I'm going to start, I think, with kind of 2012 in general before I go into the sun signs, because, as you know, there's a whole lot of stuff going on in the world right now. And as astrologers, we're also historians, and we want cycles. And we want to look at when the things are happening, when they've happened before, because that helps put things in perspective for now. So the major aspect that we're having for the next 4 years is the Uranus-Pluto square. Okay, so to put this in perspective, I'm going to go back to the 1930s when we had the last Uranus-Pluto square. And then in the 1960s, we had the Uranus-Pluto conjunction. And what's interesting is that in 1930 and 31, there was a T-square with Saturn, Pluto, and Uranus, just like the T-square we had from 2008 to 10. And that was followed by the Uranus-Pluto square, just like this is being followed now. That T-square is followed by the Uranus-Pluto square. So if we connect these themes, we can see things that were similar then as to what's happening now. Like, for instance, of course, we know in the 30s there was the Depression, and here we had a recession. There was a public works program to stimulate the economy in the 30s, and now, you know, we have the stimulus package for home buyers and to the banks and the car manufacturers. So we see this theme about stimulating the economy. And not only are we seeing it in the United States now and then, but even then the Australian banking system collapsed. There's an economic downturn in Europe. And that 1930 square is actually when the UK abolished the gold standard. Okay, and then we did it shortly afterwards. So there's some interesting things going on with banking and money under this cycle. We had things, there were a lot of marches happening then, just like there are now. The Gandhi and the Salt March was in the 30s. There were several other marches, and now, of course, we have all these Occupy movements all over the place and all these marches. And what I find interesting, and then in the 60s, there was the civil rights, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Sunday Bloody Sunday, I mean, the list goes on. But around this cycle is always something that has to do with a revolution of some sort. And that's kind of what we're going through now. Currently, and especially as we look at the fact that these eclipses are occurring in the Gemini and Sagittarius axis right now, we're finding things with the media and legal stuff. And this is what I thought was really cool. When they started evicting people out of the Occupy camps recently, they did this, of course, this was really close to the time of the eclipse that we just had at 2 degrees of Sagittarius. Homeland Security was allegedly behind a conference call between 19 different major U.S. cities, saying find a legal reason to evict the people, Sagittarius. And the Homeland Security's sun is at 3 degrees of Sagittarius right at that eclipse. So I thought that was really interesting. And it just comes into, there's a whole lot of things that come into play that have to do with this eclipse cycle. And in addition to those kinds of things, we have to also remember that we have had advances in our knowledge under this. This is Pluto and Uranus. So Uranus is technology. It's our knowledge. It's things that we're gaining from elsewhere. And if we go back to the 30s, that's when the cyclotron was invented. So that's the particle accelerator from nuclear physics. NASA, in the 1960s, launched its first particle reactor into space, and now we have CERN. So there's all sorts of things that are happening around these same themes. So not only is it revolution of the way things are run, of corporate structures, of money, of banking, it's also revolutions of knowledge and technology and things moving the world forward. And May and June are going to be the really hot periods for this year, for several reasons. The first reason is that in June we get another eclipse in Gemini and Sag. Venus makes a transit of the sun. So when Venus makes a transit of the sun, it means Venus is between the Earth and the sun, and we could actually see Venus moving across the sun. The last time this was 8 years ago, and it's happening now, and then it won't happen again for several more years. But that's happening right in June, in the middle of it all, in the same degrees as the eclipses. And that's also the month of the first exact Uranus-Pluto square. So kind of what we're seeing now, I don't think a whole lot of stuff is going to go on now, but I think a lot of stuff is going to be awakened come June. It's kind of like an awakening that we're all sort of moving towards. So what I expect basically over the next 4 years, because this Uranus-Pluto square is going to happen for 4 years, and no transformation occurs overnight. But I think that we're really going to be seeing things with alternative means of energy. Neptune is squaring these eclipses, and Neptune represents oil. So I really think we're going to find new ways of energy. We're going to find advances in nuclear medicine. I think we're going to see unprecedented advances in physics and metaphysics. What we've seen lately, I think, during this square is really going to take off exponentially. We may experience reform in healthcare, Social Security, and the banking system. We may find new socio-political ways of operating on global markets. I think the Occupy movement will get stronger. People will have more, there'll be more direction, more about restoring some of the balance. And there probably will be more marches worldwide that display this cultural wounding and desire for equanimity, because at the other square of these eclipses is the Neptune-Chiron conjunction. So we've got Neptune-Chiron on one end, Mars on the other, squaring these eclipses. So that's at the bendings. So it's a point of manifestation. So we're going to be having, it's an interesting time to watch and, get involved if it's something that you feel like you resonate with. But the point is that since the 1930s, this has been, this has been America, the land of the dreams. Anybody can get rich. But technically, since the 1930s, the rich have gotten richer and the middle class has gotten poorer. And that's been going on since the last time these planets squared. So it makes sense that now we're trying to seek a balance for that. Now, I know, of course, the Mayan calendar ends on 12/21/12, and I don't want anyone to be freaked out about that, because it doesn't mean it's going to be the end of the world or we're going to have some kind of disaster. What that is in their counting system, they counted these greater ages, and they had recorded like 5 of them. So, and they called them the first sun, the second sun, up on through. So this is the end of the 4th sun. And all that means is that at winter solstice on 12/21/12, the solstice, Earth is going to align, and the nodes and a whole bunch of things will align with the galactic center. So that solstice becomes important, and that solstice aligning with the galactic center is just the birth of the 5th sun. It's not the end of anything terrible. It's a new awakening. It's like ushering in a new era. But it's not like we're going to wake up, the next morning and this new thing's going to be ushered in. It's going to happen over time. But this is just, anytime we look back through history and we see how things have changed, first we stand at the precipice of that change, where we kind of see chaos and we really don't know what's happening. But as you come back down that curve and move into it, everything's better than it was before. People are awakened. We see that it happened for a reason. Things that weren't working are fixed, adjusted, restored so that things become better. So this is what I see happening and what we're ushering in. Because we can't go on just raping and pillaging our mother planet like we have been for eons. And also, all of these technological advances that we have basically put us all to sleep. Okay, we've forgotten to live in harmony with the earth and with each other. The media feeds us what the 1% wants us to believe. TV commercials tell us what we need, sell us things to keep us occupied by reacting to life through all of these must-have devices. And now they're even selling us drugs to ask our doctors about, with symptoms so broad that we can all diagnose ourselves with at least one new illness every night. You know, so there's a lot of this that just has to change. And a lot of it could be a ploy to keep us preoccupied and unaware of what's really going on. Well, this time that we're going through now is to get us all to wake up. This is a powerful time for awakening for every single individual on the planet. And so instead of trying to buy into all this and get involved in this rat race to make more money and acquire all these things that we don't need, to die with the most toys and win, not caring who we step on to get where we're going. Okay? That's a part of the thing that I think is going to end during this time. Because we're going to be bringing out more compassion for each other, and we're going to start to see things from a higher octave than we already do. The preoccupation should lift through this Uranus-Pluto square. And it being the beginning of a major shift that has been brewing for a while, it heightened at the T-square back in 2008, and it's going to continue on for these next few years. It's going to be very hard to remain asleep. More of us are going to wake up. And as we stand at the precipice, when it's only at the precipice does mankind change. So we are on the brink of change. And the eclipses in the Gemini Sag are going to bring the media in. I think the media is going to start to step up and expose what is really going on, what is hidden, and the truth. The truth is Sagittarius. Gemini wants the facts, Sagittarius wants the truth. Eclipses bring things out of hiding. Now we know that there's times at some of these occupied areas where they ask people, hey, are you from the media? And they raise their hand. And they go, okay, well, I'm going to pen you guys over here so that you can't see what we're doing and report it. So I think the media, who's used to being fed what they're supposed to say, what they're not allowed to put out, I think some of the younger generations in the media aren't going to care to listen to those rules. And I think we're going to start hearing about a lot more leaks. So, remembering that this is a slow transformational change, not an overnight miracle, nor is it a Band-Aid that we've seen applied over and over in the past. Okay, we're going through this up until 2015. And it's important that we get rid of our fear about what it's going to be. Nobody really knows right now what this change exactly is going to be. But it's really a cool time to be alive, because we are witnessing the ushering in of a new era for mankind. So the question becomes, do we remain asleep, believing what we're fed by the media, or do we seek out the truth? Do we stop judging the craziness of the world and back up our perceptions and embrace the fact that the only constant is change? And we've been going this way for a long time. And it's important to remember, one of my favorite quotes is, chaos is what we see when we can't see far enough. So I think that's interesting about really backing up the perception. Because, and think that if you could see further and envision your ideal world, what would it look like? Could you get involved in some way, however big or small it may be, whether you join a movement or just help spread the truth to those who are still asleep and unaware, creating change one person at a time to move towards an ideal worldview. And if we all did that, would we find that many others think like we do, if only we set aside our judgments and kept the big picture in mind? And would we all choose to be here now? We all chose to be here now. We all incarnated into these times for a reason. So we all have a little piece of purpose in helping our fellow man to awaken. So do we make a conscious decision to awaken to our purpose, to understand our little piece of the contribution to ushering in this new era that can and will make a difference as each one of us becomes the awakened many? And do we make the conscious choice to be present over the next few years, not stuck in the past of the way things were, but embracing the infinite opportunities and potentials that are present in the vast unknown of the apparent chaos around us? So it's about having faith in the universe, and that things are unfolding exactly how they should. The universe is perfect on time, and we are exactly where we are supposed to be. So if we look back at our own life, in our own personal journey, when we all faced forks in the road, and you know that after you've risen to the challenge and changed, then it's been a wonderful, wonderful thing. So this is what's coming up. This is what